Welcome everybody to the second expert series call. We're really thankful and grateful to have everyone here in this call and everyone who's going to watch the recording later on. This is the second part of sort of a learning series we started last week, where we go through each of the sections that we cover in our rating reports. Last week we started with the value proposition. This week is going to be about the team section, which is 4 questions, if I remember correctly. And Thomas is going to lead us through these questions and elaborate on how we typically rate these and give us some examples and best practices. This call is time boxed to 1 hour. However, the expectation is that we're not going to use the full hour, so we're going to still allow for a decent amount for Q&A. Just a few technicalities. If you're not in a quiet environment, please be muted. Unless you have a question, then please use the chat to initiate your speaking by adding a +1 or raising the hand using the hand sign. Note there is a new. Okay, cool. I think yeah.
I'm just going to make a comment on it because I see some of the submitted reports still use the not newly formatted rating framework. I would just encourage everyone to do it because it looks a lot nicer than the old one, but it's identical.
Cool. Yeah, the new design is really nice. I think we have linked all the links to the new design. Yeah, so as mentioned before, we're gonna take a look at a good overview of the team section. We're gonna have some examples, and in the end, tips and tricks, and then some time for questioning. And we also do have a disclaimer, so none of this is financial advice. Obviously, you can read this in your free time. And I think without any further ado, I'm gonna hand over to Thomas, who has been one of the longest standing raters in this community. He has joined in summer, if I remember correctly, and has been rating since then, and also been a reviewer of many reports also this season again. So thank you, Thomas, for taking this. Handing over to you.
Okay, thanks. Hey, hi guys. So to give you a quick background about myself, I'm Thomas, or this is my handle. And my background is in, I would say, business administration and data science. I've been working in academia for a while, with now pivoting to crypto full time, or have been investing in private and CTOs, which I think is probably my most relevant experience for rating. I'm an active user, like probably most of us. And I've been contributing to a couple of these organizations, and I'm also involved in some research activities. And yeah, my hobbies: running, reading, and quite recently I started Krav Maga, which is some fighting sport. Yeah, so that's pretty much all about me. And now to the interesting stuff. So at first, as Lavi gave you an overview, I'm first going to introduce the section itself, and after that we're going to look at more details. So I'm going to just go high level over these questions and contextualize them a little bit. So the first question within the team section asks, is the team credible and public? And here it's really key to identify if the team is obviously public, who are the core contributors. It's nice in this section also to give a brief overview of who's involved, and also to give evidence of where you can look up their background. So does the team have the relevant experience? And here 2 things are really necessary in my opinion. So the first one is to understand what does the protocol do, and what is the need that this product or protocol more broadly has, and how does the team fit to it, and what experiences are relevant. And obviously, this is to some extent subjective, but this, given that we do fundamental analysis, there's the subjective element in there. And the important thing, which I also see, and this is, I guess, a more broader statement, is to really look at the different boxes down here in the scoreboard and to think, okay, is this really true? Because I feel sometimes people are tempted to, including myself, to give higher scores than deserved. The third question is, does the team participate and help to shape the public debate? So here you are looking for your either organizational influences, and with that I mean like the whole group of people, or so as a protocol. So I think a good example that comes to my mind could be protocols that actually do podcasts or something like that. So I would say Bankless. I mean, they have some prominent members, but they also have this podcast. And I think through that, they do shape, to some extent, the public debate. But obviously, we also have like individuals. So let's take Ethereum or like Curve, where really specific people are shaping the discourse in the industry. And this is really where this question points towards. And the last question is the team able to effectively attract and coordinate resources? So I just saw there's a question in the chat, so I'm gonna reply to this now. I actually can do it now. And the question states, is the team only the founding members? And in my opinion, no. So the team is whoever administers the current protocol organizationally and conceptually. So it can extend beyond the founding members. But the founding members do play an important role because they usually set the vision of the protocol and do have a significant influence. So I don't know if that answers the question, but otherwise do feel free to unmute or follow up. To come back to the question, is the team able to effectively attract and coordinate resources? And I think from what I've seen so far, the biggest misconception lies really on resources. So what you see most frequently in these questions is actually that people focus on financial resources, but forget that there are other resources such as HR that can be attracted. And I think this is something that really has to be looked after. And yeah. So the other thing is, what is sufficient? I think this is again something where you have to think about, okay, what is the protocol doing and how does the team relate to it? Moving on to the next section to look a little bit at some examples. So coming back to the first question, so how could you, for instance, create or answer the first question, is the team credible in public, in quite an effective way? So I think the first thing, as mentioned previously, is a high-level overview over the positions. So this is actually from original SK. I quite like this because it's very, like, what I really like about this answer is that it's very transparent and people can easily look up the different founding members and can make sense of it themselves. So I think this is an effective way of showing the information. You can conceptualize this a little bit more by going into the positions. But for this section, I think this is a really good answer. Exactly linked directly to the resources. And also, I think if you really want to go above and beyond, is showing the wider team and making it really easy to within the report, so that the user doesn't actually have to leave the report page to look up the information, but can see it within the report. make that very easily accessible. And one example of how you could do this is through, for instance, providing snippets in either the appendix of the report or in a nicely formatted table within the report, just LinkedIn profiles or something else as a small, in German we call it Steckbrief. I can't think of the right word right now, but like a small biography. Yeah, so moving on to the next question on providing an example. So does the team have the relevant experience? And I think the important thing is looking at what are the key operational areas, as mentioned before, and how does the team covers them. So often what you see is isolated analysis. So like maybe the protocol has a great dev, but and the person is very prominent or whatever, but they might not have the other things to make the whole protocol run. And I think what I also think, yeah, like you can spotlight individuals, which you also see in this, which I think is really good to say, okay, why is why did a certain protocol get a certain score? And this is actually, I think, what I really like about this report, because it shows context dependence. So that essentially the score is justified in saying, okay, like this is something we would have liked to see. And I think that's really strong in this answer, and why I selected it. So again, consideration of the wider team is a bonus. So looking at the key operational areas, and again, context dependent of the product and the market protocol. Because so for instance, some organizations are B2B, right? And some are B2C, so business to customer. And depending on that, they obviously will have different needs. So B2B businesses are usually known for that they don't need as much marketing or a different kind of marketing than B2C businesses. And I think this is what is like what I really want to emphasize, I think, in this question is just context dependency. Like, be aware of the context and look at a holistic picture of the team, and if it can fulfill the needs that are needed. Moving on. Oh, no, actually, as a small reference, these are usually the different areas of an organization. So I just looked this up randomly on the internet. But I think this is a good guidance to think through, okay, what skills might be needed, and the importance of each of these will obviously differ depending on the protocol. So does the team participate and help and shape the public debate? So again, do they have a thought leader, or does the organization change it? And I took here my own example, and without trying to be arrogant, but what I liked, or what I think is quite cool, or what I try to do here, is to say exactly where they are thought leaders. Because I think often, or sometimes what I see is people say, oh yeah, they are very public and they have these talks, but where do they shape the thought? Like pinpointed and say specifically, okay, they shape the thought for XYZ and participate in debate for XYZ. And I think that is quite helpful and gives the section a lot of credibility. And finally, the last question, is the team able to effectively attract and coordinate resources? So I think, first of all, what is at least expected is the ability to attract more resources if needed. And again, resources is a broad term, so it doesn't just focus on financial resources, but on a broader spectrum. And I really like how this questions answers this. And what I really like about this one is actually that they also highlight specific mechanisms of how, for instance, here how a certain resource is attracted. So I think that's quite a cool thing to do to answer these questions effectively and believably. And yeah, always try to really evidence that they are sufficient in context of the protocol. Because one protocol might do with 2 devs, but the other one might need 2 devs would be a joke or insufficient. So this is already the end of the 3rd section. So and feel free to interrupt if you have any questions or raise your hand. But in terms of tips, and I think this is nearly more a summary of what I've said. Absolutely. Sure. Wait. Feel free to mute yourself. Oh, I saw someone raise their hand. If you want to say something, feel free to unmute yourself and yeah, just ask a question.
Yeah, good evening. My question is this. Does it mean if you have a direct answer to a raised question, you cannot give that answer before giving reference to your answer?
I'm not sure if I understand.
All right. The question is raised. You have a direct answer to that question. Can you give your direct answer before giving your reference?
So what with reference you mean the source?
Yes.
Okay, yes, you can give a direct answer, but I think it should always be so if we go back and look at one of these wait 1 second. If we go back and look at one of these questions, you can give a direct answer, but I think it always makes sense to see these question as a guiding question and write a paragraph and then answer in your paragraph these different guiding questions that are listed, and ideally always provide sourcing specific to yeah to the point you're making. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, awesome. So okay, what I would highlight again is and as mentioned, this is more a summary, but the first thing I would highlight is context dependency. Ask yourself, is the skill relevant in context of the protocol and its current situation? Because this is actually maybe one that I didn't emphasize enough, but obviously the market condition changes. Maybe in the beginning you need more devs, and now the situation is different. Holistic approach, and what I mean with this is the overall impression of the team and their performance. Does this make sense? Again, in context of the protocol, are all operational areas covered? And I included this here because I think this is something that's pretty key in at least real life investing, in my opinion, is really vibe checking the team. So how do they engage in public? How do they engage with, let's say, I don't want to say public debate, but in dialogue? How do they approach people? How do they treat people? I think this is really a crucial thing. Also, what is the individual skill level? Because sometimes or I think in general, like if you have a good team, you can trust them that they might be able to pivot if things don't work out the way they think. And I think that's a big security factor for an investment, because it's not it allows for additional security and flexibility. And another tip, because I see this quite frequently, is read the guiding questions carefully and really look at the scoreboard. I think that helps a lot, especially in the beginning, to really get an understanding of how to answer the report. And typical mistakes, so no explanation for the score, too generous scores. Again, like both of these, I think you can avoid by really looking and carefully reading. Isolated analysis of skill sets. So saying, for instance, okay, this is it's a great developer, so really high score, which doesn't cover other operational areas that are essential to the working of the protocol. So then there is a lack of context dependence. So I think always, and this is again actually a more general comment, always provide context to what you're writing. I think it be like in relation to other protocols, in relation to the product that they're having, always context is key. And yeah, only a few sources, so, or only using internal sources. So what you want to do is really have a wide spectrum, that you cover everything, that it's as accurate as in picture as you can get it. And example reports. So these haven't changed from last time. I think they all good examples. And I think they also listed in the Discord channel under Season 2 rules. So feel free to take a look. And I think without further ado, we already at the question section. And I hope there are any. Happy to take them. Please go ahead, Michael.
Okay. I have a question. In my research, I ensure that I found two founders in a particular protocol, and then after submitting it to you, you review it that it's not possible for the team to be two. Yes, I now checked their Discord and I noticed that there are 4 core team members, but on their white paper and other their websites, there's only the founders and and just one co-founder that is available. That is just 2. In such situation, how do I go about it? That I can't get to
So
the source.
no, it's a great question. So from what I remember as well, so like I think I didn't say it's not possible. I think it seems to me unlikely. Like I just wanted to rather make sure that there's only 2 people, because it was something that surprised me in a way. So that's why I wrote this. But you also mentioned this like 4 co-contributor or something. Did I catch that right?
Yes, on their Discord and I noticed that there are 4 core team members, but on their website, it's just the founder and the co-founder that's actually available.
So I think a really good data source to consult is always LinkedIn. But if nothing is listed under the company there, then I would actually at least mention that there are 4 other co-contributors, even if you cannot identify their background, and then say, okay, based on the information I have here. So let's say, okay, we have a strong technical skill with the 2 founders, or a strong marketing skill with the founders, and these are unidentified. And if this is the true picture that you were able to make for yourself, then ask yourself, are all the relevant skills covered, or are they not? And by asking that question, I think you will then see, okay, does my score match or doesn't match? Did I answer your question? Because I know I digressed a little bit.
Yes, you did. You did. Thank you. Because the yes, you did. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Feel free to ask more questions if there are any. Also, Lavi and Mayank, because I mean, both of them are, when it comes to rating, pretty insane. So if you have anything to add, feel free to pitch in.
Well, I would something I noticed when I was doing my last rating was how the members of the team were pretty much anonymous. Apart from the founder, there was no details present about any other team members, founders, developers, and this is a bit of a red flag. So, the DeFi community is anonymous. There are semi-anonymous. There's a lot of privacy, and that's great. But as an investor, as a rater, you really want to know who are the core team members. So if you're having a hard time finding this information on the project's website or in their documents, please raise a red flag and say that, look, it's not easily available. We don't know what their backgrounds are and what they are doing. If you've been following the news currently and what's happening with Wonderland, you would have seen also that there's a very prominent fraudulent figure who was the CFO of Wonderland, which is a large DeFi project. But in the spirit of keeping things anonymous, the background was not reported. And when finally a DeFi detective raised this, the project lost 50-60% of its value overnight. And this is something we want to encourage you as raters to identify earlier on. So tell us what's there, but also tell us what's not there in around the team members and their contributions.
I think that's a great point. Thanks for sharing, Mayank. And I think that also really highlights, or like the example that you gave really highlights that this is actually a really important section, which is also something I think that's often underappreciated. I feel sometimes this section is most rushed over.